Are you curious about bodies, pleasure, and possibilities? And what about curious about what others are up to on the planet when it comes to pleasure, sex, and play? Have you considered what pleasure can do for your life, your body, and your bank account? Do you know something magical, delightful, and out of this world orgasmic is not only possible for you, but totally available to you? If you're ready to be the magical, sexual, sexy beast you know you can be, and you just need the tools to get there, you're in the right place. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, sensual movement artist, relationship and sex alchemist, Milica Jelenic.
Welcome, my sweet pleasure seekers. For those of you who are brand new to this show, you're jumping in on a great episode. They're all great episodes, but this one is more lighthearted. We're talking about pleasure and pleasurable touch. A lot of it is going to be referencing the work of Miss Jaya and her 5 erotic blueprints. This is a fabulous type of way to figure out what you enjoy. So we're going to be referencing that a lot, along with some other things. And also, if you are brand new to this show, you might not realize that there are like 400 or more episodes that are in podcast as well as video, and they're on over 400 locations. So if you cannot find this show on all the locations that you love to listen to your podcast, let me know, because we're always looking for more and interesting places to get these podcasts out. But if you're listening, you must be listening somewhere. So you might be listening on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, some of the top ones for sure in the world. So I hope you're enjoying. And the reason I do this show is so that I can share with you different ways that you can have more pleasure in your life. And a lot of times when we've had a lack of pleasure, there's probably been an awful lot of trauma or stress. So we haven't been able to experience pleasure because we've been surviving, and our bodies don't really respond to a lot of things when we're in survival mode. And from my own life, I needed to find out how to have more pleasure because I wasn't having it and I didn't know how to have it. And then I was being critiqued by people for a long time about whatever that was. Had an interesting relationship with somebody who was very cruel and abusive. And I'm very grateful that's over. And it did bring to me to light that not everybody's opinion of you is true. So moving forward in life right now, it's looking at how do we have more pleasure and why is it maybe that we haven't had it? And today's particular topic, we're looking at touch. And touch can be something that can trigger a lot of different emotions and responses and have your body go into fight or flight or even freeze, right? It can get you right into the trauma response, or it can assist you in getting out of trauma. For all of this touch that we're talking about today, every single bit of it requires communication and consent. So you're not just going to walk up to your partner and start doing things to them without having the conversation first. And I know this happens too with body workers. They, assume somebody's come into their office and is like, you just can do anything. No, you actually need to see, like, are you okay? Is it okay if I touch your leg? Is it okay? And sometimes after the first few sessions, you've established some understanding and rules that they understand that if there's any touch that happens that they don't like you touching their like, I don't know, maybe their calf or something, that they can just say, hey, not comfortable, cool. So if you do go to people for body work and they are not asking permission to touch you and you have experienced some trauma and your body is actually walking away more traumatized, pick a new person or tell them that you need clarity and you need to have somebody who is willing to ask for permission. Okay, so permission, consent, clarity, communication, so important. And so what we're going to get really clear on today, we are going to talk about the 5 erotic blueprints from Miss Jaya, and big fan of hers. If you happen to watch Netflix ever, there was an episode on Netflix, or there was a series on Netflix called Sex, Love, and Goop. And on there, Miss Jaya was on there facilitating a couple through and with the erotic blueprints. And Miss Jaya also had a course on my sex and intimacy coaching class. So we got to look at her work there. So it was very fun to see that on Netflix years and years later, and that it's like gaining momentum and people are becoming more aware of it. Lots of people are becoming more aware of it. Even Tony Robbins has the erotic blueprints on his website. So he has it actually quite nicely defined and kind of simplified on there. So you can actually just check out erotic blueprints. You can go to Miss Jaya's site too, and you can find out she has like a survey on there. You can find out on there what your erotic blueprint is. So her site is missjaiya.com. You can find out more about your blueprints and find out more about her work and find out about her courses and all that sort of stuff. I think you can also find like the people who are certified in facilitating this method as well. So you could have this done for you or taught to you and your partner. Okay. So the very first one we're going to talk about is the energetic blueprint. And keep in mind that when we talk about these blueprints, you might find that you are more leaning towards one than another. And you might have some of another kind of pop in once in a while. You might have all of them quite equally. All of them quite equally is actually one of the blueprints itself called a shapeshifter. So we're going to talk about first the energetic one, because I tend to be much more on the energetic realm when it comes to all things to do with erotic touch. So in this one, if you identify with some of the things I'm talking about, you might just have an erotic blueprint that is energetic touch. So we're talking about touch today. We're talking about different kinds of touch, and we're talking about how we can use these to have greater and more impactful sexual experiences, sensual experiences, pleasurable experiences in your life. So with erotic blueprint, the energetic erotic blueprint, this is where people are aroused by space, anticipation, and teasing. So what does that mean to be aroused by space? So if you're watching on video, being aroused by space is where you can be hovering your hand over somebody's body, even like a few centimeters, a few inches, a few feet even, and their body responds to you can actually feel the energetics between the hand and the body, even when it's like a foot away. And you can be arousing the body off body. I know this is actually true. I have experienced it, and I know that it's incredibly sensual for somebody who is having the energetic blueprint for them primarily. So that's kind of being aroused by space. Also being aroused by space is having space in yourself, like not feeling crowded emotionally, not feeling crowded by your feelings or anything, having like a sense of space in general. So I live on 45 acres of land, pretty much in the middle of nowhere. I'm very aroused by space. When I start to have more things impacting on me really close, I feel an overwhelm. So this one is really great for people too who can get overstimulated by a lot of things, like just generally in the environment. So this energetic blueprint is for people who are very sensitive and need time to assimilate to touch, to sexual touch particularly. So when you're in an energetic blueprint, you could have somebody sitting across from you meditating for like an hour, and your body is just enjoying that, compared to being maybe in the sexual touch where somebody could just go right in, stick their hand on your crotch and start arousing you. For somebody with your energetic blueprint, that would be like, whoa, like hold your horses. This is very fast, and this is very, like, it'll feel aggressive to a person whose erotic blueprint is energetic. So you want to be aware of what your partner enjoys and what you enjoy, so that you can say, you know what, I actually really need time. And this is for energetic blueprints, are also people who need a lot of foreplay. And foreplay doesn't always mean teasing, the body for the entire time. It could be language that's used, or hints, or nudges, or even just having your partner switch their energy up to a turn on, so that in their presence you feel their turn on and you respond. So for me, I can respond to somebody, I'm very aware of somebody else's turn on. Whether I choose to relate to that or not is my choice. Though for a long time I was very much more into the blueprint that was shapeshifter, and I could, if somebody else was turned on, I would think I had to be turned on. So it wasn't really, I didn't really feel as much choice based. So with being energetically turned on by things, it can be slow, it can be gentle, it can be something that takes a lot of patience. So, and you might surprise yourself when you kind of go through your own erotic blueprint, that you might have assumed, oh, I'm definitely energetic, but then you kind of get through it and you're like, whoa, I'm actually really kinky. And it does change over time. So it's not that you're going to be this for life. It can absolutely change as you heal, as you understand more about yourself, as you explore the world, things can change. So just because you have a blueprint now doesn't mean you have that blueprint for life. And so it's always cool to go back. If you've ever done the quiz, go back, see if you're still that, because it might have changed for you if you haven't done it for a few years. So the energetics are also sometimes where the foreplay comes in with different things like toys and props. And sometimes not even, like you could just literally be turned on by somebody's energy and their presence could do all of it, right? So it can be that intense. If you are super sensitive and aware and you can feel that, you could be in the space of somebody that you find interesting or arousing, and you just being in their presence will arouse you. So they don't even need to necessarily touch you. You could be turned on by their existence. And even space. Sometimes that missing somebody can also be part of the space too. It's like getting turned on by feeling like you're missing them. So how would you play with energetic touch? So when you're planning to figure out your energetic blueprint, it's cool to use all 5 blueprints. Also cool to find out and use something like a massage table so you can work around the whole body, but also cool to find out in advance and pertinent and required to find out if there are any parts of the body that the person does not want you to touch. And they might be very specific, like, do not touch my face. Cool. Honor that, because you might go, oh, they just say they don't want their face touched, but no, let me just try this energetic thing on it because I'm not really touching it. No. And when they say no to certain places, just honor that. We are attempting to create more erotic energy, not feel violated. So even if it is energetic touch and you're like a foot away from somebody's face, they will feel it. 99.9% of the time, I feel it. Probably 100%, but I'm just going with 99.9 because I don't want to say like I'm 100% accurate on that. But yes, if I had that energy coming at me, even from sometimes video calls, I can feel that. So that for me would be like, whoa, do not put your hands near my face. Because I'm bringing up the face because I don't like my face touched. So it's good to know what your partner is okay with having touched and what they're not okay with having touched, and what touches are okay in certain areas. Like having energetic touch to any kind of touch on my face is like a no-go for me. But having, say, energetic touch on my feet is okay, but I don't want sensual touch on my feet. So as you go through the body, you might find different parts have different responses. And it's not all exactly the same throughout the whole body. So the play can come in with this, because this can be, and hopefully is, a playful experience. Involves communication while you're doing it, and you can ask your partner, how do you feel about this? How do you respond? So when checking out energetic touch, you can start with a very light touch on the body. Then you can hover like a centimeter, and you might notice some heat being generated between your hand and their body. And then you move out. Just see where it is that they feel the most response. It might be that you're the other side of a room. Like, it doesn't have to be a foot or 2 feet, or you're, somehow almost touching their body, or close enough that you could. You can be like a foot or 5 feet or 10 feet away from their body, and their body responds more. So it's very particular to each individual, and playing with this with your partner can and hopefully is fun. So starting with energetic, see how that feels. Make notes too. See how your partner feels. Like, likes energetic touch on the back, on the breasts, on the belly, on the maybe vulva. Doesn't like energetic touch on the feet. Cool. Now we know. So you can make notes. It can be really helpful. And just for play, it's kind of fun to go through and make some notes, and then retest it again in a few months and see if you're still there, because it could change. All right, we're going to head to our first commercial break. You're listening to the Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Hello, everybody. Today we are talking about being able to be aroused by different touches and learning about touch. And touch is like, we sometimes think, I don't like it when my partner touches me. But if you're willing to have an exploration of pleasurable touch, then you'll find out that there are lots of different kinds of touch. And right now we're really looking at the work of Miss Jaya, who does the erotic blueprint. And her method of exploration for pleasurable touch is quite renowned and worldwide. And it's really concise and a really great method to explore. You can also find out what your own touch blueprint is, your own erotic blueprint is, by going on her site, missjaya.com. You can also, go on there, find some classes, find somebody who's experienced in your area that can take you through that experience, either teaching you and your partner, or sometimes maybe they actually give sessions. So just find out. All right. So in discussing these, we just discussed the erotic blueprint, number one, of the energetic blueprint, which is one that takes a lot of time to be feeling comfortable to physical touch. And often the people are super, super sensitive, and going too hard too fast is a huge turnoff. Like, I'm thinking about so many different experiences where that occurred for me, where I was just like actual vomit response, because it was like, just because they were turned on didn't mean I was turned on. So it's really important to know what your partner, lover's blueprint is, so that you can work with them so they can actually be aroused. What a concept. Aroused, not just aroused. We have like pleasure, desire, and arousal. So arousal is definitely something that can happen, and then turn off can happen too, for sure. But the body can get aroused without having desire or pleasure. And that often can lead to a lot of confusion. And then you can also have desire and your body doesn't get turned on, right? So we're looking for pleasure in the touch. Pleasure leads to desire, leads to arousal. We're not just looking for arousal only. So in going too fast with somebody whose energetic blueprint is energetic, whose erotic blueprint is energetic, if you go too fast with them, it'll be a super fast turnoff. Their body might appear aroused to you, but there's no pleasure and desire going on. So it can create some confusion. That's why we need communication. Ask, how are you feeling? Is this working for you? Are you turned on? Are you feeling pleasure? Because your body could be like, yeah, I'm turned on, but I don't feel it. Like, I'm not in, and I feel like, and I have no desire. Which can be confusing to some, because they think that arousal equals desire and pleasure, and it doesn't. It's a body's automatic response to stimuli. So if you're stimulating a body, it can get aroused. It doesn't mean there's pleasure or desire involved. And so we're talking about that too with pleasurable touch, because you need to know that just because you're touching somebody and their body appears aroused does not mean there's pleasure or desire there. So communication, consent, and then curiosity. So a lot of this work, when we're talking about the erotic blueprints, this work has a lot to do with curiosity and exploration of the different kinds of touch that you can have with bodies. All right, so we're moving right along to erotic blueprint number 2, which is sensual. Sensual. So just in that word, sensual is the word sense. So we're looking at our senses here. It's aroused by sensations such as touch, sound, taste, smell, anything that you hear, and, all of them. So you can have senses too. You can have sensations. We have the 5 main senses, and then we have like 21 senses according to some people. We have things like interoception, proprioception, we have lots of different ways of sensing things in our bodies that are not just the touch, sound, taste, smell. What am I missing? I don't know. Anyway, so what the sensual blueprint requires is a lot of these different senses being aroused. So on last week's show, we talked about creating our pleasure kit, our play kit for adults. And if you didn't have a chance to listen to that, go have a listen, because in that episode, we talked about a lot of different ways that you can arouse the body with your sensual play kit. And so we had all 5 senses involved, only 5 senses involved. And we looked at different ways to arouse them. So definitely go back and listen to that episode. We did talk about, arousing through smell. Whether it's the body smell itself or whether it's bringing sense in from other things. We talked about taste and how you can bring food in, or the taste of your partner's body as it is. We talked about sight and what we see with our lovers, whether it's when you're looking right at them for their body shape, their clothes, or elimination of sight, where you might be wearing a blindfold so that it creates a little bit more of a different experience. Also touch, right? And in that touch zone, we did talk about having a bunch of different ways to create touch with different tools, whether you're using something that's like a silky scarf, or you're doing scratching, or you're doing energetic touch. So we did talk about some of these ones that are part of the erotic blueprint, but we didn't name them. And then sound, the things you can listen to are some of the things like your partner saying kinky, sexy things in your ear, or moaning, or having fabulous music playing in the background that gets you going. So that sensual blueprint likes that whole experience of all of those things. And the sensual blueprint can bring a lot of beauty and comfort to the whole body as a sensual experience. So you might find that somebody who's got the sensual blueprint really likes to have erotic massages, and they really don't want to be stuck in their head. So they want their entire sensory system engaged to get out of the head and get into the experience, experiencing all senses. A sensual type needs to be relaxed to open to sexual connection and turn on. So it's not everybody needs to be relaxed, but generally anybody who can get relaxed, even in the kinky zone, they can have even more erotic pleasure. Even though the kink zone often takes you into fight or flight or freeze in terms of your stress responses, and they need kind of more of an adrenaline rush, you can also relax into the kinkiness, and then your body can get even more turned on. So generally, my take on the way that our body's responds to stressors is that if you're in high stress for a long duration, your body will not actually be able to have the arousal you're looking for. Or if it does have arousal, it may not have the desire or the pleasure connected to it. So we need to bring it back down to groundedness, connection, bring the body back to feeling present. And then to me, all touch can be an amazing invitation to create more presence. So even though the sensual touch is specifically geared to that, the whole body sensual experience and being very much grounded and present with your partner, all of them can have that element as well. And even in the sensual experience, what do we need? Consent. We need to have communication, and curiosity still comes into all of these. So consent, when it comes to touch, taste, sound, smell, even if you're licking your partner, it's good to know if they actually like to be licked, because some people do not. So the sensual experience may be right off for them, and they cannot relate or even connect with that concept. So their biggest turnoff is being stuck in their head and living in tension. So what they want to do is get grounded and present. Things like meditation and yoga and creating like a super sexy space for them is amazing. They're, the kind of people who would love to have their own sex room in their house for sure, and have something dedicated to that with all of the different erotic things that can arouse your senses. They might have a little corner where they have their favorite wine or something, and then they have another corner where they have candles lit, so they have the smells and they have tastes and they have music playing. So they might have all of that experience with some super luxurious feeling, different textures in the room, like materials that might be hanging from the ceiling or on the bed or on the floor. They like having it all. And so you can be a mix of sensual, and you can be a mix of energetic. Now you bring those together, that's quite an interesting combination, right? And you might be a combination of sensual and sexual. You might be a combination of sensual and kinky. You might be a combination of energetic and sexual, and energetic and kinky. Although energetic and sexual are quite different. You might have days where you're energetic and days where you're sexual. So you can be combinations. You might be all of them, again, which is more of when you're a shapeshifter. So remember, you're not necessarily just one, but you'll probably have one blueprint that's predominant for you in the way that you like to be touched. And if you can figure that out for yourself first, that's like really helpful in sharing that with your partner, because sex is a skill that we develop, and sometimes we need to teach our partners what we like and how we like it. And there's no shame in having those conversations. And in fact, it's a very mature conversation to have. And it's actually a conversation that I think is necessary on a fairly regular basis, every few months even, to discuss, like, what do you feel like trying? How about these different touches? What do you want to experience? Let's try some things. So sensual type needs to be relaxed. So what would you do to get a sensual type relaxed? Is maybe find out what music relaxes them, start playing it. What smell relaxes them, get that smell going. What touch relaxes them? Maybe it's foot massage, maybe there's some other things. So it's really good that even within these things, like you might be like, touch, well, I like massage. Well, okay, what part do you like massage? Do you just want your butt massaged? Do you not want your butt touched and you just want your feet massaged? So you can get down to the nitty gritty of certain areas of the body, because there may be certain areas of your body that love the sensuality, and there are certain areas that love the energetic. So for me, my bum actually loves a lot of sensual experience. And then the rest of my body, like my genitals, could just be really happy with energetic connection. So it's funny because different parts may respond to different things. And as things change and shift for me, as I get more aware and connected to my body and what sort of things can be sexual arousers or sexual inhibitors, I can get really clear on what works for me, and I can share that with my husband and my lover, so that I can have a greater sexual experience. I realized when I just said my husband, my lover, some of you might figure there's two people involved. That would be delightful. I'd love to have a harem in my life, but right now it's one person with two roles. So I say husband and lover because in the role of husband, we often have certain things that we connect our marriage partners to, our spouses to, and they have a certain role as husband, wife, or whatever, wife, husband. We might have certain roles that we see societally, like dedicated to those roles. And a lot of those roles do not equal lover. So outside of those roles of husband, wife, wife, whatever combinations you would like to look at, you might have lover. And your lover times maybe don't have all the stress connected to it that the spousal titles have connected to it. So when your lover's being your lover, absolutely acknowledge, like, thank you for being my lover. Like, I enjoy my lover so much. Connect with your partner as your lover in a different way maybe than you are when you're parenting or when you're taking care of household chores, because those are different roles, right? Just like when you're at work, you're going to respond differently than when you're at home, just as you would respond differently to your friends, just as your friends aren't necessarily your lovers. So all of those roles are different. And it's really good to be clear on that and note that your partners are actually your lovers too. I went on a tangent there. So you're listening to the Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Interested in masturbating for money, copulating for consciousness, and pleasuring on purpose? 21 Days of Sexual Magicism with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic is an exploration of tools, processes, and actions that you can use to create more for your life, your body, your money inflows, and so much more. Graduated learning for all levels of interest. Learn at your own pace via video classes or join the yearly live class. Take a peek at www.milicajelenic.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is the Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet, sweet pleasure seekers. How are all of you doing today? I hope you guys are having a lot of fun listening to this show. And I'm hoping that for those of you who are listening, that you're taking some notes and you're going to actually take this into action, either looking at Miss Jaya, so you can learn more about your erotic blueprints through her method and doing her quiz, or just taking some tips and tools from the show and experimenting a little bit on your own. By all means, remember a few things is we need consent, communication, and curiosity for sure. And, create the scene with your partner so that when you're going through your erotic blueprints and you're testing out different touches, that this is something that you have time set aside. You're not going to be distracted by the dog needing to go out for a pee. You're not going to have like a million phone calls coming in that you feel like you need to answer. I would set aside a good 2 hours at least so that each partner gets an hour each to experience this, because we just break it down really simply. You have 5 blueprints to go through for each body. And so if we break it down to an hour each, that's 12 minutes per blueprint. And that's 12 minutes to go through an entire body and test out the different things front and back and see how your body responds to that. So even 2 hours is a little bit short, but you can probably get some fun started in that 2 hours. So how fun would it be to do that for a whole day? It would be so fun. And so for those of you who do have time that you can dedicate to that, and you have a space, maybe you have like a specially dedicated space in your home that you can shut everything off and it's just you and your lover, and you can have so much fun doing that. So whether your lover is your spouse or your lover is not your spouse, have fun with your lover. And why I say that is because in times when you're playing with somebody and having your erotic and sexual, sensual experiences, this is your lover. That's their role right there, is as your lover. When you get out of that space, they may become the person who takes out the garbage and the laundry and the blah, 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 different role. So that's maybe some spousal roles or some living together roles that you have. So just know that your lover roles are probably going to not be the same as your spousal roles. And I think we often get these very confused, and then people will take the spousal roles and get angry, and they're like, well, I'm going to deny you sex because you didn't do your spousal roles. Well, your spousal roles are different than your lover roles. And like, if somebody didn't do their job at work, that doesn't mean that when they go home, that they're going to be denied sex, right? Like it doesn't match. So to me, if you'd like to keep, some of the arguments aside, yes, we can get definitely attached to, if you haven't done your roles, well, you didn't take out the garbage, I don't owe you anything for sex. Yes, because that can happen. People can feel that because they're not feeling their love languages at that point. And your primary love language is, say, for example, acts of service, and the act of service you would like delivered is having the laundry done or the garbage put out or something, and they're not delivered, then you will probably be angry and not feel loved. So you won't want to deliver anything in the lovership arena. I get that. And there's ways to there's ways to work it out, and there's ways to have better communication in your relationship so that your partner knows where you're coming from. And any partner who's respectful enough to get on a call with you, with me, to have a conversation is a partner worth keeping around, because that means they're trying and they'd actually like to have something better. So why do I say that? Is because you can book a time with me. You can book 15 minutes for free. I do not charge you for that 15 minutes. You can go on my website to milicajelenic.com. That's MILICAJELENIC.com. Book my 15-minute quickie. I think I call it my quickie or something like that. It's a 15-minute session. My other sessions I do charge for, but you can pick a 15-minute session with me and we can go through some things really quickly, usually. And if you love the way that I facilitate you, we can always have pleasure in your life. All right. So we did talk a bit about the energetic and the sensual blueprints. We'd like to get through all the blueprints today. So I got some time left to share all that with you. And we will get through them. So recap, energetic blueprints take a little while to get turned on. They do need their space, and being too aggressive too fast can be a major turn on. The sensual blueprint loves being aroused by all things sense oriented: touch, taste, sound, smell. And they like to have a whole body experience and feel very grounded, rooted, and calm for starting to have any kind of connection to their partner. Now we're moving on to the sexual blueprint. Sexual blueprint, I think, is for people who are really into Grindr and Tinder and are just like really interested in having sex acts with not a lot of need to like prepare the body for that. So these are bodies that are totally just aroused by intercourse and intercourse alone. And sex for them is fun, and they use it as a tool to relax. And absolutely, sex can be an amazing tool to relax your body. It can bring your body to calm if having just sex is your erotic blueprint. It can bring you to calm. If sex is not your only erotic blueprint, which it probably isn't, but if your erotic blueprint is sexual and your partner's is sensual, then your partner's going to need all that sensual stuff in order to get connected and feel turned on by you. And you might feel a little annoyed because you're like, I just want to get it on and I'm stressed and I just need to get off so that I can get some happy hormones going, some endorphins for doing a good job, some serotonin, oxytocin, and dopamine. I need my rushes of happy hormones that come through well, not just having sex, but usually those hormones come out of having orgasms. And also they can come up with just touch as well, that is not leading to an orgasm, but those happy hormones do come in a lot faster with orgasm. So if you're looking for happy hormones to de-stress, the sexual touch is probably what you are into. It's a kind of a wham bam, thank you ma'am sort of scenario, and oftentimes can be a bit quick, getting down to business. These are the kind of partners where their first and main target is genitals usually, or they have a method. It's like tweak the nipples 3 times, get down, stimulate the testicles, get in there, stroke that clitoris. Like they're in there and they're very focused on the typical sort of sexually the typical sexual organs that we look for to be aroused. They're not necessarily looking for how can I sensually turn on your calf that may give you orgasmic energy rising that leads to climax. They're not really looking for that. They're like, boom, 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 we know what to do. Very goal oriented. And they are right in there for the task. The task is have themselves have a climax. So that's usually the task is, I need a climax. Whether you have one or not is irrelevant. Big on things like quickies, because there isn't a lot of need for preparation or connection. And usually these are people who don't have an awful lot of time, but they might go with sexual arousal for maybe in an hour. They might even go, okay, we've done it, we're going to wait 10 minutes, we're going to do it again. Their stress levels may be so high that they like to have multiple quickies in an hour, or they might actually go for a really intensive, a little bit more aggressive sex. So if you're somebody who likes to get banged, as I have some friends who are like, I just want him to bang me. I'm like, okay, well, you know what? He's probably not that sexual. He may be more sensual, or he may be more energetic, and he might not be the person who just wants to bang you. He might want to connect with you. So yeah, sometimes people will also choose sexual because it is stress oriented, to be able to relieve and relax the body. And the target is to get relaxed and just calm down, and to hit climax so that you can have all those happy hormones running in your body. That may be subconscious or conscious, it's hard to say, but if you are experiencing that a lot, then you may be actually under a lot of stress or duress, and your target is to connect in order to bring your body into a parasympathetic calm rather than being in fight or flight. So this kind of sexual, high tension sexual energy that's goal oriented can be very fight or flight. We've got to do this. This is death or life or death here. So, a lot of times the sexual style, they can just get down to business wherever, whenever, as long as there's a willing partner. I say willing because we are looking for consent and we are looking for communication. So that would be the willing partner. This can be kind of limiting though, because there's a whole world to explore sexually. Bodies are so interesting, and this can be very, it can be so limiting in that people who are into sexual only will either be, sometimes they complain like it wasn't enough, it wasn't hard enough, it wasn't this enough, and they can't necessarily relate to their partner because they haven't had the time to connect with them, and it's just about them, usually themselves, being able to achieve climax. So not always, or sometimes the target is that the other person has to achieve climax, but they don't have anything to do with the pleasure or the desire. They think arousal is the only target, right? So pleasure, desire, and arousal, super important together. All right, we have a few minutes left. We're heading to our last commercial break. You're listening to the Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is the Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. Today we are talking about using touch to have better pleasure in our lives. So we're doing an exploration of pleasurable touch. A lot of the reference, and 99% of the reference that I'm talking about, has to do with the erotic blueprint method from Miss Jaya. If you missed the episode on Netflix called Love, Sex, and Goop. It was actually on there, and her work was in the sex and intimacy training for the coaching training that I took as well. So we're looking at moving through, because we have a few minutes left, to talk about the erotic blueprint called kinky. So kinky is aroused by all taboo, so whether that's the urination fascination of urologia, or whether that's when you get peed on, or drinking pee, or having fun with pee. So there's that. There's some other taboo. There's so many kinks. If there's something that exists in the world, there is a kink for it, 100%. And there's a million different names for a million different kinks. I've talked about a lot of kinks, paraphilias on this show before. Some of my best listened to episodes are all related to paraphilias, because kink is often something that people will hide. They feel shameful about. And one of the things that we need to have more conversations about in the world is that this is very natural, as long as we're looking at, again, consent, communication, and consent equals age of consent and communication, right? So those are very important. And as long as everybody agrees on it and it's safe, we're good with the kink. So if you have a supportive partner, this can be really helpful for you to be able to tap into your needs. But if you don't, what happens over time is that you might suppress who you are, and you might become distant, and you might become you might feel like awful about yourself, actually, or weird. Or I have a few friends who, had some really deep kinks, really deep secrets that were kink related in their lives. And when they finally could speak them, it was like the biggest relief for them ever. Changed their entire outlook of the world, changed their entire outlook on themselves. They felt more loved and more accepted by just knowing that it's safe, it's okay to be able to say these things. And sometimes there are things that their partners will never do with them, but they just needed to confess. So if you need a confession, book that 15 minutes with me to just talk about your true confession, because sometimes we just need to get it off our chest. So kinky can be a lot of fun. There can be like things like scratching, tying up. You could have, your can't think of the word right now, but you could have your eyes covered up. And so many things, so many fun kinky things. If you are aroused by kink, and you already know it, then your erotic blueprint is probably kink. There is one last one that I want to talk about before we get this show finished, because it's almost done, is the shapeshifter. And the shapeshifter is aroused by everything. They're super creative, and they tend to need partners who are also super creative and adventurous. Sometimes they shift to be what others want them to be instead of owning their own sexuality, which I think I did a lot in my life. I was a bit of a shapeshifter, and then I became more and more aware of the things I actually like. And shapeshifters, they often, they take time to figure out who they are. And that's what happened for me. It took me quite a while to figure out who I was outside of knowing I could pick up on the desires of my partners, but that didn't mean that they were my desires. And I often tried to fulfill them, even though it wasn't really working for me. So taking that into account, shapeshifters, I encourage you to try, and this isn't necessarily something that Miss Jaya talks about, but I encourage you to just try out one erotic blueprint at a time for yourself. So if it's energetic, try that out for a few months and just see how you feel about that. And does that relate to you more? Does kinky relate to you more? And you might find that ultimately in the end, you truly are a shapeshifter and you love just being able to bring pleasure to people, but being able to do it in a way that also is bringing pleasure to you. So it's not just about the other person, because that's when you get into people pleaser. And that's when we know that your body has gone under a lot of stress and duress and probably sexual violence in your life, that what you're doing as a response to that is people pleasing. So that does happen. That's not something that is a happy thing. So we want to make sure that you're doing it from a place of joy and love and connection, and then like truly enjoying it. So we have, as you can see, so many different ways to explore touch. And one of the things, remember, is key is consent. Have the conversation with your partner to consent to this exploration. get some things out so that you can consent. You can ask your partner if they can consent.
Thank you for listening to The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. The Pleasure Zone returns next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.